Can you imagine being stuck in a corridor with Louvois just talking at you? I'd just be like, oh, I'm just going to put a fork in your eye, mate.
First question is from Valentina. If you were in Versailles, which character would you make friends with? And on the contrary, which character do you think you wouldn't be able to stand?
Ev, do you want to go?
I think I would make friends with the king, because that's just using the old noodle. Who I don't think I'd be able to stand would probably have been maybe Bontemps, because Bontemps would be like, who's this urchin? Because I'm not noble, and he would probably try to get in the way of me gaining political favor. I don't know, maybe just it's like a little similar to my character. I don't know.
Webster?
Oh, I wouldn't be friends with any of them. They're all awful people.
Wow.
Personally, I think I'd be friends with. No, I don't. No, no.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's
my answer.
Write that down.
I'd definitely be friends with. I think I'd be friends with Monchevy, which is a big cheat. But as an idea, I just think the parties and the fun and the gambling and the loss of money and just the idea that they're always in another room in the West Wing, just causing a little bit of chaos, I would be sort of thing. And to not be friends with, I think Louvois. I think Louvois would bore me. Or just, can you imagine being stuck in a corridor with Louvois just talking at you? I'd just be like, oh, I'm just going to put a fork in your eye, mate. So much, but you know the idea. I'd find any sort, all of that room people. I'd be like, no, I'm out.
A young Montespan probably would be fun to hang out with too, if she liked you.
Yeah, can you imagine if you didn't gain her favor though? You'd be out, right?
Yeah.
Cold.
It's from Valentina. In Versailles, is there a scene that moves you deeply every time you see it? It doesn't have to be specific to your own character.
Filming it and watching it back as many times, it's always Henriette dying for me. And the flowers in the king's bedroom. It's actually like the scene. It's the scene prior to it, and that scene where Claudine comes out and says she's not going to make it, and she requests to have one last trip in the garden, and Louis says, "Well, we'll bring the garden here." And I just thought the writing and the way that Simon and David as a unit created a sort of building up of not an anticipation, but like the idea that we knew that she was inevitably going to die. And the way that the writing just built that up to her losing her sight and her smiling. And I just thought it was just so well done. And I cried all the way through it. And if it's ever on now, it's the one thing that makes me go instantly.
I agree. And they also made Noémie look so frail in that scene, and it just, the type of like acting type that she is, that sort of frailty was so kind of breathtaking and staggering on her, because she has this vibrant beauty regularly, and so they just sort of like, it's like they just sort of drained the life from her, and it was really sad to see. And I remember when we were shooting, I was standing behind the camera, and like Simon was crying and I was crying, and everybody was just like, oh man, it's crazy. That doesn't happen a lot.
I can remember on that scene. I remember walking in to do a rehearsal. We were all in our normal clothes. We hadn't had our wigs on, and Noémie had to just lie on the bed. And me and George were just talking about the hands and who held what hand and when we put the pillow up. And I was gone. Like in the line rehearsal, I was just in tears, and I just was like, "Oh, please don't run on empty." When we actually turned the cameras, because I could not stop crying. And also, it happened to be Noémie's last day.
Oh, really?
So it was one of those weird moments where, you know, you don't have a death scene, and then that usually your
God.
scene is not your last scene when you're filming, but it was her last scene as well. So I think it was almost like an emotion of me and George and everyone, the crew, saying goodbye to her as a wrap, as well as her dying. It was so
Wow.
Which is brilliant scheduling. Like, I love.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did that on purpose.
I mean,
I'm sure they did, man. I'm sure.
Could be. Yeah, I would copy and paste those answers. I got nothing to add for that. I think that was a real standout thing that, I mean, it's so long ago since I watched the show, but that's one of those segments that kind of sticks out when you think of the show. It's like, that was a gut punch.
I also want to say that one of the scenes that's always really affected me was when the scene where George Blogden goes crazy, and he's kind of got the slightly bloodshot eye, and he's sort of like half dancing.
When he's in the fever dream, when he's dancing.
Yeah, and then he sort of just like breaks down with Stuart. I thought that was beautiful.
Next question is from Tiffany. Can you give an example of an obstacle that you overcame which made you stronger?
It's kind of hard. I think it's kind of hard to like remember obstacles, because the very fact that we're here doing what we're doing now is because we kind of crushed those obstacles. So it's like, I can't really remember a single obstacle in my life right now, but I know they've been there. But because you've overcome them, they almost don't become obstacles anymore. They become little leapfrog stations.
I used to have a crippling anxiety about playing music publicly, like crippling. And there was sometimes kind of early on when I played publicly, and just it was as a disaster. Like, I remember one time when I was first learning how to play the electric guitar, I like went up on a stage at an open mic and was like, and the guitar strap unhooked and like the whole guitar dropped, and it was like clang and like massive feedback and just like. So I was just like, it was like a nightmare scenario. And so I'm not going to say that I've completely licked it. I still have like nerves, but I'm sort of learning how to repattern those nerves as like, it's not necessarily bad fear. It's just excitement because it's something that I know that I care about deeply. So that's really kind of led, going over that and through that has led to some new opportunities and lots more expressions.
I guess mine is in a similar vein to sort of what George Webster was just saying about, but for me, it's, I've been very open about my sort of mental health and my sort of state, and I find working in this industry can be damaging and also completely rewarding when you have a sort of the thing that I like, depression. And sometimes it can be sort of job stopping, and sometimes it can be a way of therapy. And acting can sometimes be this wonderful thing where I get to inhabit another character and I get to escape from myself for a little bit. And that, for me, in being on stage or being on television, it's such a rewarding thing when playing Romeo on stage for 2.5 hours a day, every day for 6 months was the most brilliant thing, because it just made me completely free of myself. And then sometimes it has a hindrance, but I mean, that's something that I mean, a lot of people sort of deal with, but I guess that's sort of my answer.
What were to you the most important aspects of your characters, the ones you felt you needed to portray?
Well, I mean, for me, it's his multiple facets of his personality, and being able to make sure that I did each of them with the same amount of integrity and respect. So not favoring one over the other. I think that was the most important thing for me, was making sure that his cross-dressing and why he cross-dressed was of same weight and value as his fighting in a war for Louis and fighting for France, and making sure that those balances were always in check. So that was, I think that's for me.
I think it was important in a way that obviously the stories are kind of getting told from the perspective of the court, if you will, or from the French perspective, if you will. So I think William of Orange could have been painted as a villain. I know he's kind of this like boogeyman in the background who's kind of getting mentioned every now and then. And when he finally turns up, I think the the instinct is to kind of be the mustache twirling, like, ah, here I am, I'm the evil guy. And I think just choosing to try and make him as real as possible, and to have that sense of not being the antagonist. He's the protagonist in his own story rather than the antagonist of the story of Versailles, and trying to get that across, I suppose. And then if that succeeded, but that was definitely the intention.
No, you definitely did, bud.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think I definitely knew that I was up against a challenge in trying to find the humanity and the humility inside a character like the Chevalier de Lorraine, especially like the way the character was written and the way the lines were. Like, it just on the page, there was relatively little humanity in the character, so I knew that it was my challenge to bring a heart to this guy that is fallible and is defensible, and similar to what George was saying. But I think on sort of an emotional level, trying to create the architecture of the character so you could see in the cracks and you could sort of see the strings, while still allowing the character to believe himself in his going so far to convince the world of a reality that he knew ultimately wasn't true. It's so cool to be on a show that has the time to delve into the different colors too, and you can also lead the witness a little bit with the writers. Like, if you drop a little Easter egg and you have writers that are paying attention, it can grow into something else.